When I was in year 11, I was failing out of school. I just sat my GCSE mocks. I got 30 to 40% across most of my exams. And in the school that I went to, this put me at the bottom of my class for many of the subjects. The worst thing is that I got 35% in my English, which meant I was currently working at grade 4. And if you don't know, in the UK, you need a basic grade 5, which is a C, in order to even attend university. For this reason, I was pulled out of some of the hobbies that I loved, such as chess and badminton, which I was doing to quite a high standard at the time. And this meant that I had a lot of time to myself in my room, trying to work out how I was going to turn this around and learning how to study effectively. I started doing way better in my exams. Fast forward to my first year of medical school. I wanted to have balance between my hobbies and my social life and continue to achieve top grades. I realized that as I was changing, my study techniques needed to change with me. These techniques changed my life, and they're going to help you to achieve your academic comeback in 2024. Tip number 1 is to stop mindlessly taking notes. I remember in first year when I came to the realization that this is something that I wanted to try. I wanted to try stop taking notes. It was probably the hardest thing I had to do. I think for most of us, our whole life has been based around watching the teacher write on a whiteboard, speak to us, or give us a presentation, and we are just frantically kind of scribing and copying what they've just said. And there's something very scary about not taking notes. Changing something that you've done your entire life, something that's worked well for you in the past. You know how they say don't change what works, but sometimes for things that are so heavily argued against by evidence, sometimes you have to listen. I bit the bullet and I decided to give it a go. Completely changed my life, and it changed my grades. Why would you take down something that has already been made for you? Okay, so step 2 to achieve your academic comeback is to remove environmental distractions. Get rid of the phone. Get rid of every device and thing that could distract you. And when I say get rid of it, I don't mean throw it away. I mean out of sight, out of mind. When you have something directly in your eye line, it makes it 100 times more likely for you to grab it and to go on it. A very simple hack that I do is I just put my phone behind my laptop. And I found that at this point, that really does help. If you want to remove that kind of distraction even more, there are certain other tips you can use. Like you can use the Forest app, which has something called a Pomodoro timer, which is when you study for a certain period and then you break for a certain period. A classic thing you can do is you can work for 25 minutes and then break for 5 minutes. The great thing about this app is that it shows you a tree. So if you go on your phone, the tree dies. It makes it into a bit of a game. You can build trees with friends, and that helps you to stay on track. As well as removing the environmental distractions, the flip side of that is to come prepared. Come with everything that you need to reduce the need for you to get up, look for scissors, look for, a ruler or something like that in order to start. Bring snacks, bring fruit, bring your lunch, bring water, stay hydrated. Get settled in for a proper session. Step number 3, discipline over motivation. Discipline always will come first, and motivation is largely a myth. A lot of people will say, I just don't have the motivation right now. Get started with the gym, or I just can't find the motivation to start studying. This is so normal. Everyone is going to feel tired. Everyone has days that they're just feeling a bit down. Whatever it is, there are many reasons why you might feel like you're not 100%. And everyone thinks like this. But does everyone get the same grades? No, not everyone gets the same grade. How do you make sure you end up achieving good grades? By remembering that all it takes is 5 minutes of work to get going. You don't want to go to the gym, but you force yourself there. And once you've started working out for 5 minutes, you're like, this is great. Like I'm glad I'm here now. I would be kicking myself if I didn't come here. And that's the same with studying. Once you study for 5 minutes, you realize that this can be quite enjoyable. And once you get into it, you start diving deep. You end up getting into the flow state, that mental state when time just flies. You realize 2 hours has gone by, like, wow, that felt like 10 minutes. And that 5 minutes to get into it, that's what I think of discipline. The ability to just get started. Getting yourself to do something when you don't want to. And one way to develop discipline is taking on the mindset that how you do one thing is how you do everything. If you tell yourself you're gonna wake up at 7 a.m, you wake up at 7 a.m. If you tell yourself you're gonna make the bed, you make the bed. Accumulating these small 1% wins over time is gonna make you a more disciplined person. Step number 4, consistency is king. This is how we make sure we remember everything that we've learned. Let the magic of compounding take place. You can have the most effective study techniques, but none of that matters without repetition. Not only do we need to be consistent when studying in order to cover the whole syllabus, we also need to be consistent in order to go over the stuff we've already studied. Because without repetition, the stuff we've previously learned is going to fall out of our brain. When we go over it consistently, we reinforce the nervous connections in our brain, which helps strengthen our memory. It's scientifically proven to be better to study 1 hour a day for say 5 days versus 5 hours on only 1 day. Spread it out. 1 hour a day, 2 hours a day is amazing. It's much better than studying all in one go. Step number 5 is to stop highlighting, underlining, rereading, and to employ active recall. What I mean by active recall is actively using your brain to try and think of information instead of passively reading something. That feeling that you get when your brain hurts a bit, that's when you've used active recall. And examples of it are flashcards, having a blank piece of paper, trying to write down everything you know about a topic, and then looking it up after. Doing a mind map from scratch. You can use Notion. If you know how to use Notion, you can use the toggle feature so that you can hide questions, and then you can click on the toggle to open up the answers. There's multiple ways you can kind of do it, and also practice questions. Practice questions are your best friend. They're gonna emulate what the exam is gonna be like, first of all, but it's also gonna allow you to use active recall. On the other hand, you have stuff like underlining, rereading, highlighting, making summaries by just trying to write out notes in your own words. Really and truly, when you do these things, think to yourself, what did I actually take away from that? Maybe in the moment, I understood it. But you know when you look back at it a couple of days later and you just think, what the hell does this mean? What does this mean? I don't understand any of it. And it's because you haven't really learnt it at all. You've just copied it down, basically. So use active methods and don't just use passive methods for learning. Lastly but not least, study with friends to make it sustainable. With all these new techniques and tips in mind, you have everything you need in order to study effectively. But there's no point studying effectively for 1 day and then taking a break for a couple of days. How can we make it sustainable? By making it fun. Study with friends, switch up the location, go to a coffee shop, go to a library, study at someone's house. Make sure these friends are people that have the same goals that you do and want to push each other. Sometimes we really want the answer to a question and it's really hard to Google, especially with medicine, where in our course, a lot of the questions are known as one best answer questions. So many of the questions could be kind of right, but there's one that's most right. It's not easy to ask Google or ChatGPT which one is the most right. If you ask a friend and they know the answer and they can break it down for you, that solves you needing to try and find the teacher somehow. In our case, they're professionals, they're doctors who, might be in the middle of a surgery, they're hard to reach. Having that friend next to you, literally in real time, to be able to ask that question just makes everything so much easier. You don't need to make that list of questions you need to ask in the future. You can just ask them there and then. And you guys can bounce off each other and just share your knowledge with each other. Everyone is bound to have strong points and weak points. And by studying with friends, you kind of accumulate parts of both of you to help you study to your full potential. All right, guys, so now we're fully equipped to achieve the most insane academic comeback. You're going to be that guy who gets those results that no one expects. Now we're ready to turn things around. Good luck.